What do we got, Fernando?
We're a disgusting car, mate.
You can't say that. Well, hey, it's a brand new day. It's Thursday, and the fun begins early. So what we got here is a Toyota 4Runner. We had done some work on it, and they had done some work on it. A lot of people buy radios and then go, I can put in the speakers. Well, that's cool, most people can. Or, so anyways. So check it out, this is what we got here. The radio, it's a Kenwood. Kenwoods like to go and protect when they see a short. Now, when we got it, there's 6 speakers in this. They all played, meaning we reset the radio, every speaker played, there was no problem, there was no blown speakers, no funny sound whatsoever. Everything was fine. This is alright, let's keep going. So we go ahead and pull the radio out, we take our voltmeter and we test for continuity between each speaker. Each speaker was fine until we got to number 4. Number 4 was metering to ground. And what I mean by that, real quick, is if you take your meter and you set it to continuity, which is, the continuity is when it makes the cool little, or you can set it to ohm, which is very similar but different. And then you put it into here, into one of your speaker wires, and you take that and you go to a ground, which in this case would be the frame of the radio is a good ground. There's also a ground over here. Well, when we did that, we were getting something, you know, something that looked like that, was reading to ground. None of the other speakers did it, so right away we knew that there's got to be something wrong with that speaker. So we went ahead and pulled the door off. The speaker looks good. It's mounted in a nice plastic mount. It's nothing big there. Go ahead and pull the speaker out of the door. Now, a lot of people are really concerned with making sure that the logos go the right direction, but if you'll notice right here, see this lip right here? If you can kind of see right there, see how there's a little discoloration? So what was happening is that these, when the car would move and bounce, would sit there and they would eventually, the speaker sagged a little bit because it doesn't have round holes. It's got these odd shaped ones. So as time went on, the speaker shifted down and was shorting out against that little piece of metal right there. Simple solution. Just rotate the speaker, because up here there's actually no metal whatsoever. But the point of this isn't really so much of that the point is that sometimes when you put your speakers in and everything is perfect, or so it seems, sometimes you just have to go back. It's as simple as turning a speaker and you can avoid that problem. So don't assume that just because, you know, you did a great job on the install, something that small can cause you a headache. Alright, tip for the day. Let's get going. So we're on to our next car. This one should prove to be really fun. We have a Chrysler 300. He's already got an existing single din in it. We're gonna go ahead and take that out. We're gonna replace it with a Pioneer 6900. He's already taken the rear speakers out for whatever reason, I don't know, but we're gonna go ahead and put Pioneer speakers all the way around and also add a Pioneer 5-channel amp. So this is actually, this is a full Pioneer system. I don't know what subs are going in it yet. Paul brings those by later. But let's take a look at our strategy thus far. So for those of you guys that don't own a 300 or are familiar with the 300, the Charger, the Challenger, the battery is right here in the trunk. It's a really big, nice battery, good grounding points, so that's all nice. This area right here is what we're working with. So we're gonna go ahead and mount the amplifier here in this corner, so that it's gonna basically sit like this. We'll have a point that we can attach here. We're gonna make a plate on the bottom here for all the wires will tuck up underneath. The wiring for the power and stuff, we'll show you where once we get to that point. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do that. That's the plan there. He has the spot in the dash for 3.5s, but there's none in there. So we're gonna go ahead and add a set of 3.5s. We're gonna do these little guys 3.5s here, and they're gonna be running parallel with the 6x9s. So we need some way to make sure that those 3.5s don't go crazy. For that, we're gonna use these guys here. These are 47 microfarad cap. These will allow these 3.5s just to play the sounds the 3.5s need and allow us to cross over the 6x9s at a much lower level so we can get that cool mid bass out of them. All right, so let's take a look at the 3.5s and add the crossovers to them. How do we add this to this to this and make it all look good? Let's do that. First thing, take yourself your wire, take a razor knife, split it down the center, go ahead and cut it. Cut about 2 inches off, strip it back. Now go ahead and put some shrink wrap over this end here. and basically line your cap up like this, and then just, doesn't matter where you do it, just roll the wire around it like this. Okay, and then just push it in. Bend that like this. Take your solder. Take your flush cutter, cut off the excess wire. You can push this up like that. We'll basically do the same on the other side. Hey, for the most part, you're done at this point. However, I like to go ahead and add a second layer of shrink wrap to bring it all together and make it a bit more robust. And there you go. Now you have a nice inline crossover. It's all secured. You don't have to worry about anything. It's double insulated at this point, so you're good. Now, because these are going in the dash of a car and they're 3.5s, there's still an opportunity, even though we put a base block on them, for him to blow them, which means these need to be serviceable. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and put on some speaker terminals. These are insulated. And then now we'll just go ahead and add this to the speaker. So there you go. So one of the things we have to check is, because he has an aftermarket radio, we want to see if he has a smart harness or if they just tap the ignition somewhere. So let's go ahead and get this out. Good news, he does have a smart harness. Hey, we talked about this the other day, how to tell if it's an 8 or a 4. If you look right here, there's speaker wires on this side, there's speaker wires on this side. So this is what we'd call an 8. Doesn't matter for this install because we're running new speaker wires anyways. Just kind of worked out that way. But if you guys want to see what it looks like, boom. So a real quick break from the Chrysler, we have this Hyundai Azera to do. So the thing with the Azera is, or any Hyundai for that matter, a lot of Hyundais, is some of them come with the Infinity sound system. It's a nice sounding system for this type of car. The problem that happens in this car is that the plug that they make for this car, well, it doesn't have an amp turn on in it. Let's take a look. So this is the power plug for this car, and it has a yellow, a red, a blue, but what's missing is a blue-white, and a blue-white is an amp turn on. Blue is power antenna. So when you get into this car and you wire up the plug and you plug in the radio and you're like, oh cool, and then you see that logo and you're like, whoa, wait a minute. So normally what you would do is that wouldn't be a problem, because all you'd have to do is plug this back into the factory radio, take your voltometer, turn on and off the radio, and see which one of these wires puts out 12 volts when you turn on and off the radio. So in this case, to save you guys all the heartache, this green wire right here next to the orange wire is the amplifier turn on. If you're ever doing one of these Hyundais with the amplified system and it won't turn on, you don't feel like testing everything, well, there you go, it's right there. So now what we go ahead and do is we add in a pin to this and we're all set and ready to go. If you want to buy 2 of these plugs, you can always pull out one of these reds or this blue and repin it. We just happen to have extra pins laying around. I know, right? Or you can just cut the wire on the other side and make a jumper, whichever is easier for you. All right, this one's done. On to finishing this bad boy. All right, we're in the home stretch on this one. Let's take a look and see what we got done so far. So we have the amplifier mounted, ready to go. We have the subwoofers in place. Nothing is tuned yet, so all the speakers are in and wired. So the only thing we got left is this right here. So let's go ahead and get that done. Green, green, red?
Green, green, red.
Okay, that one looks good.
I got red, red, green.
No, you don't. Okay. All right, so the speakers all tested correctly. Now we're gonna go to the trunk and start the tune as far as distortion and stuff like that. All right, so we have signal. Go ahead and turn it up. Oh, that was close. One more. All right, right there, turn it down. What are we at?
61.
What's that?
61.
All right, go to track 2. Okay, so we have track 1000. Go ahead, turn it up. Try 61. Oh, go down to 60.
60.
All right, so it looks like 60 is gonna be the safest bet for us. So now what we want to do is we're going to set the gains on the amplifier. So for that, we're going to play it. For the highs, I like to start at -5. So we're going to do 1000 hertz, -5. So we're on the front outputs. We're going to go ahead and start turning it up. All right, so that looks about right. Let's go to the rear. All right, so we have the gain set. We're gonna go ahead and wire this back up. Take a listen to it. We'll adjust the crossovers. So when tuning a system, there's a couple things you need to keep in mind. You have the highs and the tweeter, mid, sub. You have all the components playing. And like this system is a 5-channel system. So we have front, rear, we have sub. There's 6x9s, there's 3.5s. Now what we need to do is isolate what we're trying to do, meaning we don't want to adjust the crossover while everything is playing, because the subwoofer is going to play bass. We want to check to see what the mid-range are doing. So there's a lot going on. So for this, we're testing the crossovers first. Now we're at that point. So to do that, we want to turn off the subwoofer, because we're not concerned with the bass coming from the subwoofer. We want to hear the mid-range. We want to hear them distort. Now, people ask, well, how do you know what frequency to set them at? And at the end of the day, unless you do have the crossover calibrator, it's really hard to know. It really just comes down to your ear and listening to the sound that's coming out of them. Listen to different types of music. Listen to different genres of music. Everything that you listen to, because that's what's going to tell you what's going on. And your ear will tell you, play it at high volumes, so that's where you're going to be playing it. Play it where you're going to be playing it, because that's how you know when it's distorting. So for example, you guys have heard this song a million times.
We're gonna play it because we know what it sounds like. We've done it in every car. So we're gonna play that. We're gonna check the crossover points, turn them up, turn them down. It's done by ear 90% of the time. It's done by ear because we want to hear the speaker distort, and you can do that. It's yeah. So what we're listening for is the highs are going to do what they do. That's not what we're worried about. We're worried about the bottom end of the mid bass. We're trying to hear it clip, hear it distort, or hear it make any sound that doesn't sound natural at higher volumes. At low volumes, crossover points, you could cross over at 50 and you'd be fine, but we want high volume. We want it to play where it's going to be played, so you always turn it up. The other thing you want to keep in mind is just because you have the same size speakers in the front and the same size speakers in the back doesn't mean you play them both at the same time. Play your fronts, then play your rears. They may need to be crossed over at different frequencies just because of where they're at in the car, the door as opposed to the rear deck. So don't just assume that I have 6x9s, everything needs to be crossed over at 80. It doesn't, because they're big free air in the trunk. It might be because it's free air, the speakers can move more and it just goes crazy back there, and it's clipping, or distorting I should say, not clipping, it's distorting faster than the front door speakers. It has the door as an enclosure, so you may need to bump the crossover frequency up a little bit, or in this case sometimes you may have to turn it down because you can get more mid bass out of the bigger area. And then of course, ever crucial, once you get what you think the crossover should be, you want to play all the highs at once to make sure that they're not hurting each other. And this is where it can be tricky, and there again, there's no magical mystical thing for this. It's your ears. If something doesn't sound right, you may need to turn crossover up or down, or the gain, you may need to turn the gain down on one. Never turn it up, always turn it down, because the gains are as loud as they're going to get, so now you have to go down. And then once you feel you have them balanced or sounding the way you want, now it's time to turn back on the subwoofer and listen to it with the subwoofer, because that's, and even doing that, sometimes turning on the subwoofer, that can all of a sudden make everything sound weird there too. So, but at least you know that they're not distorting. It could be the subwoofer causing that, in which case you may need to turn that crossover point up or down to eliminate that weird noise. All right. Well, you asked. So if you've done everything right up till this point, which don't expect to get it right the first time, it's okay. You own the car. Take your time, drive around, listen to stuff. There's no hurry getting this done. You don't have to have it perfect the first time out like we do most of the time, only because a lot of times this is the only time we're going to see the car. So we're going to spend as much time as we can to get it as close as we can. Now, we also offer people, if they need, like they drive it for a couple months, all the speakers have loosened up, we allow them to come back and we'll tweak it some more and make sure things are where they need to be. That's fine, and they're going to do that. You know, speakers have a break-in period, not just subs, mids and highs, they all have a break-in period. So what it sounds like today, it may sound different in 6 months. You may need to tweak those crossover points. Don't feel like they're permanent, they're always going to be that way. The speaker could loosen up. You could all of a sudden start to get mid bass that you weren't expecting. Could be for the good, could be for the bad. You never know. So there again, you always want to turn those subwoofers off, take a listen, make sure they're still doing what it wants. Nobody wants blown speakers. All right, so we have this car dialed in to where it sounds, what do you think?
Good.
Sounds
yeah.
good? Oh, we get a good from Fernando. All right, we're gonna wrap this thing up, get it on. We got another car waiting. What do we got, Fernando?
We have a good one.
And by good one, you mean it's missing half of the dash?
That's what is a good one, because we don't have to pull it.
Wow. All right. Well,
So, it's here, of course, all day.
need a drink?
No, let's see.
Sure. Oh, wow. Way to go, GM.
Hey,
All right. Well,
whatever it takes, man. 220, 221.
you bet. Well, let's get started. Done. You got a screw? Awesome. You have a drill? There we go. All right. So this one is out of here. Wonder what that is. Curious. Don't know. Well, good morning, everyone. Today is going to be a fun day.
It's a happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Anyway, so what we got going on here is we have a 2017 Challenger with the Alpine factory system. Sounds like crap, as most guys that own these cars know. They're all factory 2-ohm speakers. That's just the way they like to do this. It sucks, whatever. The customer bought all new JBL speakers for the front, 2-ohm, Kappas for the door, 2-ohm, Kappas for the rear, 2-ohm. Still sounds terrible. So now what he wants to do is put the pac-audio Amp Pro in so that he can run an amplifier and make everything louder, hopefully sound better. Problem: amplifiers are only designed to run 2-ohm per channel. If we were to take the dash speakers and the door speakers and connect them, that's going to be a 1-ohm load. The amplifier's not made to do that. So we've explained this to the customer. Now, of course, he's disappointed because he's already bought these speakers, they're already installed. And it's like he has an expectation of quality towards the end of this, and we're like, man, we really can't guarantee the way this is going to sound because we can't run it the way we would do it. Like yesterday when we did the Chrysler, basically the same car, we would have done the same type of system. We can't do that in this. So we have no way to control these things. So what we're going to end up doing is leaving these dash speakers on the Alpine amplifier and re-amplifying the 4 6x9s. It's a 5-channel Pioneer again. So this is going to be interesting to see how it sounds. Let's get started, shall we? Let's take a look at the Amp Pro. So a lot of you guys might not be familiar with what an Amp Pro is. It's a smart module like this one here that the car factory side plugs into. Now this only works on a car that has a factory premium system with an outboard amplifier. So like this car here has the factory Alpine. It could work on the Harman, it could work on the Beats by Dre. If you have a Ford, it'll work on the Sony. But anyways, the idea is that those radios all have a full signal output going into the amplifier. The problem is that most of them are fixed volume output, meaning that the volume doesn't move with the volume control. It actually adjusts at the amplifier. And then the amplifier has all its channels where a dedicated crossover, some have time correction. It's a lot of fun. So what this device is designed to do is go in and then give you, it's not a high level to low level adapter. It's full digital. It will plug in and the signal that is coming out of the radio comes into this via one of these cool T-harnesses. It has a remote turn on output right here. It has a bass knob and it has 5 volts of RCA output that is full bandwidth. What I've seen on the internet with some people not fully realizing what this is doing, they're still trying to say, oh, I don't want to go with this, I'm going to go with some form of a summing device, EQ, Magic, whatever. No, that's not the case. If you want to do some form of external EQ, an Audison, an audio control, Moscone, whatever, that's fine. Or even the JL. You could still take the front left and right output, which is a full bandwidth output. It's clean. It's just like a regular aftermarket radio, and go into your cool EQ and do all the funness. Not only that, if you have an amplifier that will take a Toshlink input, they sell an optional Toshlink adapter that goes right here so that you can come right out of your factory radio through this box and have Toshlink directly into the amplifier. This is the coolest thing ever when it comes to adding aftermarket to a premium sound system. Now, the suck of all this is if you don't have the factory premium sound system, this doesn't matter. You can't use it because at that point the amp's built into the radio. All right, let's get this thing in the car and have some fun. When you go to remove the dash, what you want to do is there's these 2 hard plastic areas right here. You want to start there, not here. You know, you want to start here, but you don't. You need to start here. The reason why is this is all soft rubber, and when you're prying on it, you're gonna crush this stuff down. These 2 areas here are hard. So when you get in here with the tool, you can kind of pry it up. So I start over here on this side and then work my way around the cluster here. And then as I go up, I can actually get my fingers in and kind of push like this. Do the same here. This side of the dash will come free. Then you can get your fingers in here and kind of gently wiggle, and just keep wiggling, and eventually the whole thing will come loose. And then you just kind of do your magic here, tip it like this, and it slides right out. And then repeat the process to get it back in. So once you get the dash off, what you want to do is remove the 4 screws holding the panel in. And then take some kind of material to set underneath the screen so that you don't accidentally bump the dash. Because what you want to do is get to the back side of this monitor right here where this big harness is. This is what we're going for, is this guy right here. So we'll go ahead and make sure this is all nice and padded. Let's grab the harness. There's 4 dip switches on the side of this. Dip switch 1 is if you want the backup sensors to come through the front outputs here. So like if you're gonna do that EQ we talked about, you're going to want everything to come out of the front. Number 2 dip switch is if you want to go from a 5 volt to a 4 volt. Now what we want to do is work this radio so that we can get to this harness, which we'll just go ahead and unplug these antennas. And this just pinches and then lift up. Go ahead and unplug it. Plug into the car side. Make sure you hear that click. Yank it, make sure it's nice and tight. Go ahead and plug into the radio side. Now, I don't think you'd want to push this down. Put your hand underneath the screen and hold it so you're not pushing on the dash. So you're kind of sandwiching it together. Push it, make sure it clicks, pull up on it, make sure it's nice and tight. And then lastly, what you want to do is plug in your module. So go ahead and turn on. So at this point, this blue-white wire should have 12 volts. Let's go ahead and get a meter and test that. We have remote. And we have no remote. So the blue-white's working the way it's supposed to. Let's go ahead and test the outputs of these. Now the other thing that should happen is out of the rears, we should hear the backup sensors. So let's go ahead and put it in reverse. Okay, so that number fluctuation was the little beep that the backup sensor makes. So we know that the rear output is putting out the backup sensors because we're gonna do front, rear, and sub with this one. We're not just using the front output. All right, so at this point we can mount our screen back in, put this someplace convenient that we can get to it in case we need to flash the firmware, and also plug in our RCAs and hook up a remote turn on. Okay, so we've gone ahead and ran all our RCAs into it. The one thing we did run into, if you notice those, it says FRS on the top. Well, they put the labels for the inputs on the bottom. And of course, once you mount it, you can't see those. So we took a silver Sharpie and went ahead and wrote on the top of it so that we would be able to know what we're doing. All right, so let's take a look at the amplifier. Conveniently, he did not have the spare tire here. So we were able to make a mount for the amplifier. The signal wire runs up and around and goes across the car that way. The battery is right here, the fuse holder gets there, and then conveniently Chrysler gives you this guy here. This is a great place. It's the battery ground, so you can easily just attach your amplifier's ground right there when mounting here. The other day when we put the amp right here yesterday, we also grabbed that bolt too, but in that car we had to. This is a newer car, they've increased the size of the wire, but in those older cars, this was a little crappy 8 gauge, so we went ahead in that car and made a 4 gauge jumper. We don't have to do it in this one, it's a little bit better. Last thing, last puzzle piece right here is the subwoofer. He's getting, what is he getting?
The P3s.
So we're just finishing this up and then we can listen to it. So when tuning a system like this, where everything is kind of mixed, meaning that we have the front speakers on the factory amplifier, we have the door speakers and the rear speakers on the new amplifier, the subwoofers on the new amplifier, this is one of the harder systems to set up. And this is one of those things that unfortunately is hard for us to show you. The easiest way to do a system like this, there again with your ears, is with 2 people. And what you have to do is you have to put a person here in the driver's seat and you have to put someone in the back at the amplifier or wherever the amplifier is. Now what you want to do is you want to fade the speakers all the way to the front, because there again, like we said, it's always about isolation. Isolate speakers makes it easier. Fade it to the front. The dash speakers are going to get louder quicker just because of the way this works. What you want to do is figure out where they're at their crappiest. So turn it up to where they go and then turn it down a bit. And that's the max volume for the system. That's using your ears as a distortion detector. And there again, as we said before, try different music. You guys know we talked about that yesterday. So then what you want to do is, now the gain on the amplifier is set extremely low. So what we want to do is bring up the gain on the amplifier until it is influencing the sound, meaning it's bringing something to the table. In this case, we want to hear more of the door speakers, less of the dash speakers. So let's say if the radio goes up to 50, this one sounds good up to about 28. So we want to bring up the gain on that until it mixes well.
This is where distortion detection almost becomes impossible, because as far as the tool goes, because we're using our ears to do a form of gain overlap. We have the set gain, which is the factory amplifier. Now we have to bring our gain up to either be above it, which means we have to turn these down, or I hope you understand what I'm saying. There's a mix that's a gain mix that has to happen. And it's a balance to how much do you want coming from the doors, how less you want coming from the dash. So you find that mix and you find that point on the volume knob where it all happens together. And that's why I said this is very hard for us to show you. So Fernando's in the back, I'm in the front, we're playing some different music. I'm telling him to turn it up an eighth, a 16th, a 32nd, turn it down a hair, turn it up a hair, adjust the crossover by 10%. And it's literally that hard to do. Now, once you get done with the fronts, you move on to the rear. You haven't even touched those yet. So now you have to bring the rears up to where they're not screwing up your stage, but there's something there, so when the customer goes to rear or you go to rear, you know it's there and it just doesn't sound like the sound just disappears from your head. Now some of you guys just want front stage, that's fine, don't even worry about the rears. Cool, rock on. This person wants rear stage, so we have to add in something that isn't going to screw up our front stage, but when he fades to it, he goes, oh yeah, there's sound there, yeah, I'm happy. And then last but not least, in there again, I have Fernando, turn it up, turn it down, give me a little bit, a little less, a little more. Perfect. Then we play them both together, and if I need any final adjustments, I'll say, Fernando, you know, we just turn it up a touch here, touch there. It's literally a touch. I mean, a 32nd of an inch can make the world. I know that sounds funny, but it is. Now, then we move on to the subwoofer. Subwoofer, we try to match the gain for the front and the sub. We match those because they're basically going to be about where we want them to be. That's a great starting point. We listen to it, we hear how much bass we have. If we need a little less, we'll turn it down. We need a little bit more, we're good. I always try to caution on the side of a little bit more because it has a bass knob. You can always turn it down. You know, I would much rather you turn the bass knob up or down than use the tone control on the radio. You good?
I'm good, I agree.
He agrees. Awesome. So we've just done all that. Sorry I didn't record it. It was just been me yelling at Fernando, turn it up, turn it down. And it was much easier just to talk about it like this. But we're gonna go ahead and listen to it. We've got this thing dialed in. Rock on, here we go.
If you having girl problems, I feel bad for you, son. I got 99 problems, but a bitch ain't.
So if you guys are watching this on YouTube right now and you're saying, I just enjoy Dean and Fernando, what you need to do is head over to Facebook, make an account if you don't have one, and check us out on Facebook Live. Because right now we're stopping this video and we're going to Facebook Live so we can talk to you guys in person. Alright guys, happy Saturday morning. Today we have this cool striped car we're working on. We're putting another one of these cool data link systems into it. We just did one of these last week?
Yes.
Last week. So you guys are pretty familiar with this. Nice about this one though, is it has the one feature we didn't get to show you, which is it has the Bluetooth buttons and the steering wheel control. So today we're gonna show you that feature, so that'll be cool. So behind the glove box is this guy right here. This is the sync module, and in the harness is a blue-orange wire. It has the controls for the phone functions on the steering wheel control. So if you hook it up without tapping this wire, those features won't work. So what we've done is we've cut this open and we've grabbed the blue-orange wire, which is this guy right here. Now what you want to do is cut it. The side that goes to this, cap off. The side that runs into the car is the side you want. You want to tap into that and run it to behind the radio. And then once it incorporates in with the RR, this will give us the controls for the phone in the radio. So now what we're going to go ahead and do is solder onto here, run it over there, and we'll be all set. So today's has been a fun day so far. Fernando's been working on the Mustang. The wiring harness portion I tried to film. Paul's out today, so what I'm having to do is constantly, which you've seen, is me running back and forth to the showroom. It's been making filming really difficult, so I just wanted to make sure we got that portion because that was the important part. We haven't filmed before and we wanted you guys to make sure you saw that. Let's get back to whatever's left of the video. Alright, so next on the docket, now that the Mustang is done, is we have a big F250, Fernando's favorite, that we have to just put an amp and a couple subs in.
And there is the F250, I'm sorry, 350. We're gonna go and install another rock for.
Alright, since we're back, let's take a look and see what we got going on thus far. Where'd you put the amp? Oh, there's the amp. Okay, so we have the amplifier mounted. That looks good. All tucked in. This floor sill's already on, which means, there we go. Got it all braided up, getting into the dash. If I can finish here, I've been working underneath the hood. We have the fuse holder mounted right here, connected. We're just waiting. Oh, he's already drilled the hole. Perfect, I can finish it up. All right, in and done. So you've heard us talk before about making sure that your fuse is tight. This is a prime example of a fuse that was not tight. And as you can see, what happened is it was loose here. So it wobbled around. That created a lot of heat, a lot of spark, and look at that. That is insane. Now the other thing too is this is also a CCA wire, and they put a bigger than normal amplifier for this size wire. If they would have ran a 4-gauge CCA, they would have been fine, but they ran this little guy. But look at that. That is just awesome. All right, it's over. It's done. We're out of here. Maybe. Who knows? There's always more. Does it ever end? I don't know. But it ends now. See ya. So it's 5-star Disney talk. So if you guys are interested in Disney, this has nothing to do with car audio, but we're gonna go to Disney Quest like I've been talking about. I'm gonna take you guys with me.
So stay tuned.
Like I said, people just like to randomly stop in front of you. So Disney Quest is 5 floors of arcade. They have old school games, new school games, consoles of all different kinds. Not like, well, you'll see when we get inside. They're getting ready to close it because they're gonna put in the NBA experience. So the last couple weeks it's gonna be open. We used to come here a lot, so we're here. One last hurrah. Let's go inside.
Totally suck at video games.
Ready? You ready for this? We're ready. Gotta get this full. I'm working on it. I'm stuck. No, don't wait. No! No! Not easy. Are you good? Wait. Wait. Ah! No! We're so good at this, we haven't even been hit. Oh God!
That's a cat. All right, guys, we hope you enjoyed that. We'll see you back on Monday.
Bye.